Hi everyone. So we are talking about the box model this week. The box model, as you've been learning, is essentially a box that wraps around every HTML element. And the box model consists of margins, borders, padding, and the actual content. The box model is fantastic because it allows us to place elements next to each other. And in that way, we might see one area of content sitting right next to another area of content instead of just being stacked one on top of another one, sort of like in a grid, items placed next to each other. And there's different ways to do this, but the box model is an important concept to understand in CSS. So if you look at this file here, this is the download lab that I've provided you with. And it has several files in it, or it's got a couple of files in it. We've got the box sizing HTML page, and I've got a CSS file that I have created for you. I'm going to open, this is the box sizing page. So I've opened this in VS Code and Visual Studio Code, and you can see what I have here. It's just a basic HTML page. Here's the head area of the document with our title, with the link going to the style sheet right here. And here is a paragraph of text from Shakespeare, Hamlet. I want to place this text into a box instead of just letting it wrap in the browser, or instead of letting it be the full extent of the browser like we've had in the past. So if we look at the browser, here's the browser. This text just extends the full length of whatever width the browser is going to be, whatever width the viewport is. So we want to have a little bit more control over that. I'm going to move this over here so that we can start typing some styles in to our style sheet. Maybe if I do that. Okay. So up here, you can see the style sheet, and you can see it over here on the left side of VS Code also. So here's our style sheet. There's nothing in it right now. So first thing, look at what I've got in here. I have wrapped this paragraph in a div tag. And we want to give the div a name, because what if you have several divs in the page and maybe we only want this particular paragraph to be styled in the way that we're going to do in a minute? Then to make sure that we're only targeting it, we give it a class name. If I come up here, so the class name was Shakespeare. Remember, for a class, you always have to have a period in front of it. I'm going to type in Shakespeare. Okay, and I'm going to start with the background color so that we can see what's going on. This is just a shade of light gray. I'm going to save this, and you can see that there is now a light gray background behind the content. I'm going to use percentages in this page. You could use pixels. You could use a variety of different units of measurement, but I'm just going to stick with percentages for right now. So width, I want this element to be 100% of the browser width, or the viewport width. So 100%, which is basically what it is right now. So save that. There's no changes because we're setting it at 100%. And remember, this space up here, this is 10 pixels that the browser has put in there, and it's just by default. We can override that, but we're not going to worry about it right now. Okay, next I'm going to give this a margin of 10%. Command S for saving. Look what's happened. So it's starting to get a little wonky on us. Let's continue, and then I'll explain what's happening. Padding, 5%. moved again, border 1%. And to see the border, we need to give it a color. ED25AE, hot pink. And a border style so we can see it. Solid. Okay, and here it is. So what's going on here? First of all, let me just remind you that the space between the content, here's the content, this is the paragraph, the space between the content and up to the border, that is the padding. The border, of course, is the hot pink line, and the margin is the space outside of the border. Okay, so what's going on here? No matter how wide I make my browser, this box still runs off the page, and that's because our numbers over here add up to more than 100%. The content's 100%, but then when we start adding all these other things in, we get more than 100%, and so that is extending our box clear off the side. I can scroll to the left and the right, and I can get to the end of it, but that's what's going on. We want the width, the total width, to be 100%. And we put 100% width in the CSS. So then when we start adding these other items, that's where our challenge is coming in. Here's our 100% width. We've added on 5% margins. I'm sorry, 5% padding. And then we've added on 1% borders and 10% margins. That total comes up to 132%. That's why it's running off of the page. So if we look at that page again, there it is. If we look at this page again, I've got, here's content, here's 5% padding, here's a 1% border, here's 10% margin, and then that's happening on the other side also. So it's not just adding it in once, you have to add it in twice, once for each side. So our total is 132%. What that means is we actually have to remove 32% from 100%, and that gives us 68%. I know it's a little bit of math. This is probably a little bit more confusing than it has to be. You just have to remember that all of your numbers need to add up to be 100% if we're using percentages, which in this case we are. So my number needs to be 68%. If I come back in and I choose 68%, save that, there we go. Now the box is sitting in the page perfectly. So if we're looking at these numbers and I bring in this image, here's a box model. Can we kind of see it? Here we go. Content. Here's our content, this center number, which needs to be, we decided 68%. Here's the padding, so this area right here to the left and to the right of the content, that's going to be this 5% and 5%, that's our padding. And then here's our 1% border. And then on the outside, that's our 10% margin on each side, which is going to add up to be 20%. Okay, that's it for the box model.